Hey guys, nice to see you again. I know it's been a day. Uh, so tonight for dinner we're going to cook. It's called steak Diane, um, and it's steak with a sauce over it. Diane is the sauce. Uh, this was recommended by another YouTuber to me, Mudbrucker, who's, as a matter of fact, is getting ready to come on here in a half hour. We're eating kind of a late dinner. We spent the day working in the garden, so the flower beds, getting them cleaned up, ready to go. Not planting anything yet because we can still get a freeze. We got about another month before we can do that. But we got some mulch on, we got the weeds out, stuff like that. Went and had lunch with a friend of mine. Me and Chris did, and that was really nice. I haven't seen him in a couple months. So, but anyhow, steak Diana. Um, I've never made this before. It's new. We're trying it for the first time, so I'm following it to the T of the recipe I found. Uh, it does involve cognac, alcohol, so although you burn off the alcohol cooking it, but if you're not 21, I don't know if you're gonna have cognac. I'll work on an alternative to that. I've not found one yet. So, but we'll see. Okay, so ingredient list. So things to go over. I had to write it down, mostly because I film on my phone and the ingredients list is on my phone. That's all right. So it calls for 4 6-ounce steaks. Now it called for beef tenderloin steaks or a steak of your choice. So I did not use beef tenderloin steaks, and right offhand I don't even remember what steaks these are, other than beautiful steaks. That will cook. Next thing you need is salt and pepper. It does not give a mouse for salt and pepper. The salt you're simply going to use to season the steaks with prior to. You sprinkle the steaks with salt, let them sit 15 to 30 minutes. While you're doing that, you can get some stuff mixed up. But and then the pepper is just part of a garnish after the fact. So there's no true. It would be whatever. There's no true amount to it. It's sprinkled over your steaks, and what that's doing is it's tenderizing it as it sits. You need a half a cup of beef broth. I use Better Than Bouillon condensed beef broth. Now you get so much more out of a jar than buying it in quart containers. I have found buying in the quart containers, at least with beef broth, since we don't use it a whole lot, and very rarely do we use 4 cups of beef broth, it's a lot easier to buy it condensed. I don't like the cubes; they're way too salty. The Better Than Bouillon beef comes in a jar, and matter of fact, here, I'll show it to you real quick. Right there, it is. It takes. I mean, I've probably made beef broth half a dozen times, and I've barely scratched this jar. I mean, it's really, yeah, and I'm about, I don't know, halfway through it. So it makes a lot, and a teaspoon makes a quart. So if you needed a lot, you could use it. Anyhow, so it's got the beef broth. It's got 4 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce, or Worcestershire sauce, which is right here. And then it also calls for 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard, right there. 2 teaspoons of tomato paste, right there. 2 tablespoons of butter, which we have right here. It calls for a half a cup of minced shallots. If you don't know what a shallot is, it's a really small onion, red in color and relatively sweet, right there. And you want to mince them. How fine you mince them is completely up to you, but you want them chopped small, hence the minced. It takes 4 tablespoons of cognac, which I have right here. I don't know much about cognac in and of itself, other than I've never drank it before, but it's a form of brandy. If you can't find cognac or you can't afford cognac, brandy is a little cheaper alternative. And all right, this is the kind of cognac we're using right there. And then you need 1/3 cup of heavy cream, which I have still sitting in the fridge. I didn't want it to sit out and get ugly. 1/3 cup of heavy cream, and 1 to 2 tablespoons of diced chives. And it recommends fresh in the recipe, but I'm sure if you didn't have fresh chives, you could just as easily use dried chives. Because once again, the chives and the pepper are for nothing more than a garnish. They don't actually go in the sauce. We're basically we're pan searing our steaks, and then we're going to make a sauce out of the bits that are left in the pan. Is what we're going to do, and then we'll pour that sauce over the steak, and we'll garnish it with a little pepper and some chives. All right, well, let me get me and you over to the stove or the oven where I've got my pan on. It's already warming up, so that way we can. Well, actually, before we even go that far, I'm trying to skip a whole step before I sear the steaks. So I already salted the steaks. They've been sitting for about, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes or so. And it recommends in the recipe, boy, did I really screw that up. Let me move the steaks out of the way so I can work a little. I'll move you down a little so you can see what the heck I'm doing. All right, so the first thing you want to do, pull your steaks out, put them on a plate, salt them down both sides, okay? And then set them to the side. You got to give them at least 15 to 30 minutes. If you can give them a little longer, great, but you don't want them to go too long. Beef, as a protein, is great, but it can break down really quick. So 15, 30-ish minutes, I wouldn't go a whole lot longer than 45. All right, so while that is going on, we're going to make part of the sauce that we're going to need for this. All right, so we want to take the Worcestershire sauce, the mustard, and it's Dijon mustard. It's not just regular yellow mustard. I don't know if I just mentioned that, but it's Dijon mustard. And then the tomato paste. And I'm saying and a lot, sorry. Mix Worcestershire sauce, mustard, tomato paste, and broth together. Got a little bit of Worcestershire left in there. And the beef broth, we're going to mix that together, and then we're going to set it aside. And then we're going to move over to the stove. I don't know why we mix this all together like this and set it to the side. I don't know, but reading the directions on how to make this, it seems to actually move pretty quick. Because what we're going to do is when we get over to the pan, we're going to melt the butter. And then once the butter is good and melted, we're going to crank the heat up. We melt the butter on a medium heat. And if you're using cast iron, you want to do this. I couldn't quite understand why we were doing it. If you weren't using a cast iron, because it says put it on a medium-high heat, melt your butter, and then crank it to high. I'm not going to crank mine to high. Your oven will vary, but you want it to be hot in order to sear the steaks. You want it to kick on there. Now I know if I crank my cast iron all the way to high, I run the risk of warping it, because it'll quickly heat up in the center, and the rest of the pan won't heat, and cast iron likes to do funny things. I've got it warming up now to get it to medium high, and then I'll put my butter in it, let the butter melt, and then we'll crank it up to sear it. All right, let me get moved real quick and over to the stove, along with you, moved over to the stove, and we'll take it from there. All right, hold on one second. All right, so we're at the stove. Pan's pretty good and hot. I've had it burning for a minute now. Cast iron, you always want to let it warm up. That just kind of goes without saying. This butter was already warm, so I'm just softening it up. And I would imagine if I would have put this on extremely high heat and slapped the butter in there, we would have had a ton of smoking. I mean, you can see and we would have burnt the butter. It would have left just a horrible taste. All right, so we got that in there. And I'm going to turn my cast iron up now. I don't believe, it says to crank it to high. I don't know if that's quite necessary to truly crank it to high. You know your stovetop, I'm sure. But, so I'm going to take it up enough because I honestly, if I put this up to high, what's going to happen is it's just going to smoke all this butter out before anything gets seared. So I'm going to let this warm up for just another second, and then we'll drop steaks in. So I'll be right back in just 1 minute. All right, so we're going. See, the butter's smoking really good, which is okay. It's not going to hurt anything. What you don't want, I mean, I don't know if you can tell in there, but the butter's browned a little. Brown is good. It's when it starts smoking, bubbling, and it gets really brown, almost black, you're burnt. But caramelized isn't bad. All right, that's hot. So what we're going to do is we're going to put these in here. I'm not going to be able to fit all 4 in the pan, which is okay, because we're going to remove them from the pan as soon as we get them cooked through. But you want to cook these through because this is when you cook them. There is no putting them in an oven or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is cook these about 3 to 4 minutes per side because they're thicker. And it'll be up to you on how long you cook them. Do you like your steaks medium, medium rare, well done, cooked all the way through? You can use a thermometer. I'm going to use a thermometer on mine, but I'm going to start out with about 3 minutes on the first side. And what we did by letting it hit that hot pan like that was sear it. So what searing does is it quickly cooks the outside. And then that way, none of the juices come out and you get a nice, juicy, tender steak. One thing I didn't tell you to do before you put them in here, I did it, but I did not tell you to do it, is you want to take a paper towel and pat your steaks off and get the moisture off of them. If you have moisture on the outside of your steak, it won't get a nice brown color on it. You won't have that seared just off the grill look, so to speak. So make sure that you do that. Water is not your friend when pan frying. All right. Well, I'll be back. I'm gonna sear these steaks, and then when I come back, I'll show you the steaks, and then we'll work on the sauce. All right. See you here in just a second. All right, guys. So I got done searing the steaks. Steaks seared, but the camera really does it no justice because they look really light on camera, but they don't look bad on camera, but they look amazing in real life. So the next thing we gotta do, yes, dear. Sorry, I'm being talked to by the boss. Abby is in the kitchen. So the next thing we want to do is saute the onions. And we're gonna saute them in the juices left over from the steaks. Now, originally, when this recipe originally came out, you didn't add a whole lot of juices to it. I mean, you used the blood of the steak as your to make your sauce with. But now you don't really so much do that. But I mean, you're kind of doing it with the steaks, but we seared in a good majority of that. So what we're doing now is we're going to saute these onions for a couple minutes. And it probably won't even take a couple minutes just because this pan is still screaming hot from sauteing. I did let it cool a little bit though, because if I would have left this cast iron on 7 like it was on to sear these steaks, we would have been a hot mess. But I've got all those bits in there from the steaks. I've got the juices of the steaks, the butter. I mean, everything that we cooked with is in here. That we've cooked with so far is in here. So, and you want to let these go for a minute or two till they get this nice golden brown color, like they have. And then the very next thing we're going to do after that, while those are sauteing, remember that sauce we just made a few minutes ago? we're going to take it and we're going to pour it in. So we're going to let this cook for a minute or so. And what we're wanting to do is see how it's come up to a boil. We're going to let that boil for a minute or two. Oh shoot. I forgot to add the cognac. Cognac should have gone in first. But what we're doing is we're going to scrape those bits off the bottom of this pan. Anything that's stuck to it with the onions, we're going to let this cook down with the cognac and the broth we made. Like I said, in the instructions, which I skipped, you put the cognac in first to deglaze the pan, and then you add the broth. But it doesn't really make that big a difference. Meanwhile, I'm letting the steaks sit in the microwave to stay warm. And what you want those steaks to sit. I took them up to the temperature of 135, which is medium well. That's what we like here, so that's what we meant. But you can make them whatever you want. Just look, 125 to 130 is, or 120 to 125 is rare. 125 to 135 is medium rare, which is what we like. 135 to 145 is medium, if I remember right. And anything above 145 is well done. All right, see how we're getting nice and, it's bubbly and it's started to thicken up a little bit, which is what you wanted. It only takes a couple minutes. Like I said, this actually moves relatively quickly. So while we got that going, we're going to pour the cream in here and we're going to stir. We want it to stir up. I don't know how this tastes because I've never made it before, but oh my goodness, it smells amazing. So we should be in pretty good shape here. So we're going to let this come up to a simmer, if I remember right. Let me double check my instructions. Yep. So we're gonna cook this for about another 2 minutes, and it'll thicken up a little more. And then once it thickens up, I'll get the steaks out and we'll plate it up and see how it goes. All right. Let me get this thickened up. I'll move the camera so we're back over where we were, and we'll take it from there. We'll see how it goes. All right, see you here in just 1 millisecond. All right, guys. So got my steak out. It's on the nice plate. Now using the fine china tonight. Steak deserves a real plate. So I got the sauce sitting right here. I let it sit. It's got a nice thickness to it now. It looks amazing. I did sneak a little taste of it prior to before I took it off the oven just to see how it tastes. It's freaking crazy good. So then you just want to take it, pour it over top of your steak. And then we're going to take some pepper. Sprinkle a little bit on top of that. Now, in the recipe, it called for a fresh ground pepper. I don't have, I think there's pepper grinder up there, but this is really coarse ground pepper that we buy. So I don't really buy or really use fresh cracked pepper. It's good pepper, though. And then we're going to garnish it with some fresh chives, just like so. And there is steak Diana. All right. Let me get up here where I can see your smiling face. There we are. There you are. Gosh, your eyes look amazing today. I don't mind saying that. So let's see how it tastes. Now that we got this perfection on here. Now I did see somebody mention in the comments of the recipe I looked up online that they had put mushrooms in this. And that might be something I do in the future, but to practice what I preach, anytime you try a new recipe, you should try the recipe the way it's built, and then add to it or don't add to it after that. But let's see how it tastes.
Yeah, it seems like
That
probably won't be the next couple of weeks, the next 3 or 4.
was way too big of a bite. Steak Diana is amazing. And that is just wonderful the way it is. I can see where adding mushrooms to it would be really good. And I may do that on the next round. But the richness of that sauce is crazy good. You can't pick out any single one ingredient that we put in there. It just created this whole new wonderful mouthful of goodness. That's the best way to describe it. And that steak tastes great. It's a nice medium rare. Yeah, or medium well, sorry. Here, hold on a second. I'll cut another piece to show you. Yeah. I don't know how well that's going to turn out on camera. It's not, because it wants to light itself up. But it's just slightly pink throughout, crispy on the edges. It might be a decent shot there. It's definitely a medium well. Things you can pair this with, or have on the side. You can do a baked potato. You can do mashed potatoes, a really nice mashed potato. Almost any vegetable would go with this. Green beans, corn, anything. Broccoli, cauliflower, combination of both, a mix. A good salad would go with this also. I think a baked potato would go best, but we are out of potatoes at the moment, and I didn't think to get any when I went to the store to get the cognac. To make this with, but so tonight we're gonna have mashed potatoes of the instant variety. Not my favorite, but maybe a scallop potato would go with this, especially a white cheddar scallop potato. That would be really good. But anyhow, absolutely amazing recipe. I'd like to thank Mudbrucker for mentioning it. I'm glad I tried it. Like I said, it's a classic. I mean, old, like older than me, probably older than you. Recipe. It's been around for quite a minute. Highly recommend you try it. If you do, let me know. I know he's tried it. He's the one that recommended it to me and said it was absolutely amazing, and he was absolutely correct. So, I think that's it. I am going to get dinner together, finish getting dinner together, and have dinner with the family. All right? Oh, and finish listening to Mudbrucker talk on his live stream. So, I love you. Tell somebody else you love them. It'll make their day a whole lot better, I promise. And I'll talk to you later. All right? Bye.